Right, welcome back guys, and tonight's session we're going to turn these pointy sticks into arrows. Just about the last job, not quite but almost. We're going to turn them into usable arrows by fletching them. So we're going to use a jig. So this is the jig we're going to use. This is a cartel jig. I think they're currently on sale for about £30–35. You can get them from about 15 and be just as usable. Might not last as long, but they'll still do the same job. Basically what you get with a cartel one, you get 2 table clamps, so you can clamp it down onto a table no matter what, wherever you want. You get the jig itself, and you get a fletching clamp. So basically what you've got, big chunk of metal. At this end you have a V notch which centralizes and supports this end of the shaft. You have a magnetic clamp holder there which allows you to position and basically leave the clamp in the right place until your glue is set. You have a socket here which has a revolving bar which you can position in order to index your shaft correctly to put your fletchings on. You have 2 grub screws here which you can alter if you want to put 4 fletchings on or 3 fletchings. You would just swap them over, tighten one, loosen the other. At the back here you have a knurled knob which you turn, and as you turn that it turns the bar inside there, basically indexes the bar. That's it, that's basically all it is. Now if you're perfectly sighted, not a problem. However, there's a couple of modifications you can make if you're visually impaired like I am. First off is I've put a black line down like the knob at the back there, the indexing knob, which lines up with the bar inside the socket. Now that bar at the moment is lined up 90 degrees to the vertical of where your fletching clamp would be, which means that the first feather glued in on that position will be your cock feather. Now basically what happens is your arrow, get a bare shaft, I'm going to bare shaft, there we go, I've got a bare shaft. Your arrow, the nock, locks into the bar there. So if you know we're using the indexing nocks, find the indexing mark, position it on the clamp, on the jig, push it in, and it locks into the bar. And then when you turn this, it rotates the shaft through 120 degrees each time, which allows you to put the fletchings on at the right interval of 120 degrees. Right, so there we go. Now we're currently in the process of doing this one, fletching this one. So we shall rotate that to bring it round to where we were. No, it hasn't gone too far. Nope, I was right. There we are. Right, that leaves us in the correct position for putting the last fletching on. Nice. So if you notice with the clamp, it has inch graduations along this side. Now I like my fletching to start 1.5 inches forward of the knocking point, so I've marked this at 1 inch, and basically to give myself a good visual reference I've painted it black. I've also painted the edges here black so I get a good contrast between the white of the quill, which is the base of the fletching, and the clamp itself. So basically I line the back of the fletching up with the beginning of the black mark where I've blacked it out. Gently push that into position. There we go. Now you don't want to push it all the way through because you're going to apply pressure which is going to push it down onto the shaft anyway. Now there's 2 ways of fixing fletching onto a shaft. You can use super glue, or you can use fletching tape. Now I tend to think, some people swear by this stuff, I don't like it. I think though if you're using plastic fletchings onto modern shafts such as carbon fibre, aluminium, stuff like that, it does the job. It's basically super strong double-sided sticky tape, but I don't like it, so I don't use it. I've tried it, I don't like it, so I use super glue. Now the only problem is, if you're visually impaired like what I is, the application of super glue is a little bit problematic, basically because I can't see where it's going. That's one of the reasons why I use a gel rather than liquid. So here we go. Now this is a good opportunity, actually, if you're a visually impaired archer and you want to give it a go. Get a friend round, have a couple of beers or a couple of ciders, and while you're having a laugh, just sort of spend a few hours making some arrows. And you can, if you're visually impaired, you can get your sighted friend to do all the fiddly jobs, like applying the glue. Now for myself, I've got just about enough vision that if I get the light right, I can see the sheen of the liquid glue. I can also sometimes see where it's gone everywhere else, but we're good to go with that one. So basically, you get your positioning. Now there's a bar there, like I said, there's an indexing bar, which makes sure that the clamp is in the same place on the jig each time. You slide the clamp up to that bar and then slowly rotate it down onto the shaft, and then apply slight amount of pressure. Now those magnets are actually strong enough that if you apply pressure, it will hold it in position. It won't allow it to spring back, even though the colours are quite springy. So that's good to go, sort of thing. So you're applying a little bit of pressure. Now I've just noticed there one of my fletchings has moved. We'll have to sort that one later on. So you're applying pressure. Now it's super glue. It's good quality super glue as well, so it won't take very long to dry. But there's one more little job to do in terms of making these into shootable arrows. The problem with, if you're using plastic quill fletching, it doesn't matter. However, if you're using feathered fletchings, there is a little job which you have to do. Now traditionally, once these are fastened onto your shaft, you would wind some thread around. Actually, I'll get a... You would wind thread around to tie down the front of the fletch, because when you're shooting, it's happened to me, without realising it, the front of the fletch might have just come undone a little bit. And actually I've shot a longbow and I've actually hit myself in the hand, and it's gone through like a really bad splinter. But the only way to get it out is either cut it out or pull it through, which is what I had to do. Not a pleasant experience. So you need to tie the front of that down, because these fletchings are actually quite good, these ones, the gateway fletchings, and they have been smoothed off at the front quite a lot, but you still need to get that safety precaution in place. Right, so we've left that for a few seconds, long enough to set. Yeah, that back one needs to be repositioned. Don't know how that happened. But anyway, so the next thing you're going to do to tie down the front. Now this is where the heat shrink that I mentioned in a previous video comes in handy. Now you can get this in many colours now. And basically it's electrician's heat shrink for tidying up cables. It's available in, I mean, I've got black and white, but I saw blue, red, green, all sorts of stuff. Now you want to get one that's roughly a third larger than the shafts you're working with. It's a 2-to-1 shrink ratio. So if you're using a 9mm shaft, you want something which is about 12mm, because it'll shrink down to 6 and form a nice seal on the end of these arrows, on the end of these fletchings. And it's simplicity itself to use, but you've got to be careful because it's so easy to burn the fletching or yourself. You can do it with a lighter, but I don't think it's as controllable. Even though it's safer in terms of temperature, it's not as controllable, so I use this thing. Get a nice flame going. You don't need a massive super hot flame. Get it on into minimum. Now this is the problem I have, is actually lining up so I'm actually applying the heat in the right place. So I've got to be careful. Now this stuff does heat up quite a lot, so just be careful about how you're handling it. For instance, the end of my thumb is burnt from today's activities with this stuff. So we're just trying to shrink it down onto the fletching without setting fire to the fletching. Because the first thing you'll notice, if you've got a visual impairment like myself, is not the flames, but the smell. Right, we're almost done. So just shrinking that down. Yeah, we're there. Just a last quick. Yeah, good to go, I think. Just check here, give it a squeeze, yeah. Turn the torch off, don't put it down without turning it off. And there we are. Another complete arrow. So it doesn't take long. Once you start the fletching off, if you're using super glue, I mean, you could do an arrow in 10-15 minutes. You could even just take your time and do 20 minutes, go and have a cup of tea, come back, do 20 minutes, and within no time at all, these are just the ones I've turned out today. And I haven't gone mad today. I've just steadily plodded on. And like I said, if you're visually impaired, get a friend round, have a couple of beers, a couple of ciders, and just knock some arrows out. And between the two ears, it can become quite a relaxing couple of hours. And to be honest with you, I love these things. I mean, look at that, isn't that gorgeous? Anyway, right, so tomorrow, now essentially these arrows are ready to shoot. But tomorrow what we'll do in the next video, which I think is the last one, is we will do what's called cresting, which is basically making these arrows unique and identifiable to you. So that will be tomorrow's. So homework for tonight, get all your arrows fletched, get all the feathers put on, get the ends sealed up and heat shrunked, and then tomorrow we'll make them look even prettier. Right, cheers guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll talk again soon.